Well, good evening, and thank you so much for joining me this evening on the Talk and Save Saturday night. Welcome to the Silburn Show. Welcome for those who are joining me on YouTube, those who are joining me on Facebook, and those who are joining me on Instagram as well. This is a great Saturday evening. Today is the 31st of the 5th, and I think I don't know. I think the breaking news is that the Reggae Boys have lost. I think on some penalty. I think they lost 5-4, 4-5, 5-4 to Nigeria on some penalty. I think that's the latest. I hope I'm not getting it. I hope I didn't get it wrong there, but I think they lost the football, the unity match or so like that in Brent, if I'm not mistaken. This is a Saturday night, and the topic tonight is going to be: is integrity elusive in Jamaica? That's what the topic is. Is integrity elusive in Jamaica? And one of the things is that is a bone of contention which is being discussed and talked about a lot. There are many different factions to it. Integrity links with corruption, and someone just recently just sent me what they did. They sent me the definition and the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. The quality of being honest and having strong moral principles. That's now. The state of being whole and undivided, upholding territorial integrity and national sovereignty. I would like to know what are your thoughts when it comes on to things like integrity in Jamaica. Buckles and chains, thank you. John Fish, respect. Natasha Shine, those who are on Instagram, thank you so much. TikTok, please share, please like. Those on what should I say, on YouTube, please share and be like. Now, this is a Saturday night, and one of the things about Saturday night as well is that we talk about what people are drinking. It's talk and sip, and of course because of TikTok, I tend to always be mindful. Marvin, what's Bridget? I tend to always say, because of TikTok, watch the words that I say. The words of honor life, what I'm drinking. If it says I'm drinking, I can't say if I'm drinking something of a nature, because TikTok picks it up and then they will start to put you on restriction. But I have a Stella Tour. I've got a Stella Tour glass. It's something similar to a Stella Tour. and of course I'll have some water as well. And if persons are drinking anything or so, let me know what you are munching on or drinking or so. I think that is very crucial. Tonight I'm going to be joined with Matunda McCullough and possibly Miss Rosemary Binder and possibly Michelle as we go through and navigate this whole thing when it comes on to integrity. There's a man one time said, integrity will guide you, will guard you along the way. No matter how I believe that a country is performing, our country is getting great and things are looking fantastic. Someone said, I saw a video where someone said, they said, if the Prime Minister have 28 bank account and so much progress is happening in Jamaica, he want him to have 50. he said the Prime Minister must have 50 instead. Have 50, and then you'll have double progress or so. So that is very interesting. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just start the show and let us get going. Good evening. Very interesting evening. Very poignant evening as well. And I believe one of the things when it comes on to a topic like this, when it comes on to integrity, you also link it a lot with corruption. And I did a little research early, and I was trying to pick up a couple of things. You know that in Jamaica there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of things happening in Jamaica that people don't know. A lot of things happening in Jamaica that people don't know. I did a research recently, just to juxtapose and take it away. I did research recently as to the nature of work that is being done when it comes on to gender violence. And there's so much raft of things which are happening there that I will have to do maybe a video and just outline all the different things which are happening. So there's so many things which are happening there. Do like the screen and do tap up the screen, and please do share and do like it as well. I appreciate that if you share and like as well. The the key thing is this: the question of, there it is, live restricted for some audience. The live contain themes that some may find uncomfortable and has been restricted. So there we are. So I got, say, consuming substances featured in this live could harm your health. And I'm not drinking anything of the nature, but there we are. So I guess TikTok is saying that I mustn't drink. Drink. Might as well just block it if anything, TikTok. So I'm also drink. I find it so stupid. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I have to turn off TikTok, do pop over to the YouTube channel because I'm drinking water and drinking some juice. And apparently, the Stella Artois glass, find it very silly. TikTok. The question of whether integrity is elusive in Jamaica is a recurring theme in public discourse, especially as the country grapples with governance, corruption, and accountability issues. While there are institutional mechanisms in place, such as the Integrity Commission and civil society advocacy groups, public trust in these systems remains a challenge. Institutional efforts and public perception, that is something which is very crucial. Integrity Commission and anti-corruption work. Jamaica's established bodies like the IC, Integrity Commission, which is tasked with combating corruption and promoting transparency and accountability in public life. The Commission's ongoing work and public statements reaffirm its commitment to these goals, but it operates in a context where allegations of corruption and lack of impartiality frequently surface. Civil society advocacy organizations such as the NAI, National Integrity Action, persistently advocate for stricter and anti-corruption laws and effective enforcement, highlighting the need to close legislative loopholes and strengthen institutional frameworks. Despite these efforts, many Jamaicans and observers continue to identify corruption as a major barrier to the country's development. What do you think about that? Governance and constitutional change. And this one is very crucial because constitutional change is something which is on the pipeline, something which is being talked about, something which one hopes to see it being done sooner than later, but of course not at the same time during the election. The election out of the way. The concentration of power. Analysts and experts such as Professor Rosalie Hamilton, who has been a regular guest on my show, argue that the Jamaica constitutional arrangement concentrates power in the hands of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, with inadequate checks and balances and limited oversight mechanism. The centralization is seen as contributing to the governance deficiencies and a lack of accountability. Do like and do share. Do tap up the screen as much as you can. Oh, there's some restriction on it now. Public engagement and reform. There's widespread recognition of the need for comprehensive constitutional reform to empower communities and decentralize decision making. But progress has been slow and public engagement insufficient. This has led to frustration and calls for more meaningful participation in governance. One of the things which I've been doing is dealing with civics. And for the past few weeks, I've done about 4 sessions with civics. I have Joanne Simpson, who started the ball. I had Mr. Matunda McCullough, the former acting public defender. I had Professor Rosalie Hamilton, and I also had Ms. Ginny Calder. And these can be found on my platform. They can be found on YouTube because I believe that is very important. Understanding the responsibility of citizens and civics. Civics, of course, is not, what should I say, a very sexy subject. It is not. Because it is not brawling and it doesn't generate, excitement. But it is something which is very important. Very important because it goes to the depth of responsibility for citizens. Right? Justice and accountability. Justice as elusive, public commentary and media discussions frequently describe justice and integrity as elusive in Jamaica, even as crime rates decline and institutional reforms are debated. The perception persists that those in power can avoid accountability and that systematic changes are needed to restore public trust. Opposition and public statements. The political opposition and civil society often frame integrity as a leadership issue, urging the public to choose leaders rooted in integrity rather than governance, rather than convenience, and to demand, what should I say, uh, demand demand greater adherence to the rule of law. So, in conclusion, in my monologue and in starting the whole ball rolling, integrity in Jamaica is not entirely absent, but is often perceived as elusive due to persistent challenges in governance, accountability, public trust. And we're seeing something which are in the media out there now, which is challenging and people are questioning the level of integrity in leadership, integrity in governance, integrity in government. And while there are robust institutional and civil society efforts to combat corruption and promote transparency, the effectiveness of these mechanisms is hindered by systematic issues such as concentrated power, insufficient public engagement, and ongoing concerns about impartiality and enforcement. This is a very strong topic. This is a topic which one has to look at it and to analyze and to be very critical. You know, when you speak on topic like these, depending on who is actually being critiqued, then you are actually painted or on the another side. I've seen where a couple of the advocacy group which are in Jamaica, when they come out and they speak, they are deemed to be a side of a political party. So therefore, persons sometimes do not maybe look at what should I say the mischief or look at what is really the objectivity of it. But they say no, because this will mess up my mind. This will mess up my food or so like that. But I'm going to have Mr. Matunda Makolo to join me and to discuss this whole issue here and to look at some things which are happening in society at present, which draws questions about integrity, draws question about corruption. And these are things that should be highlighted. It should not be pushed under the carpet because maybe one afraid to be tarnished or afraid to be considered as bias. Objectivity must prevail as much as possible. So I'd like to hear your views and your comments, but I'll invite Mr. Matunda McCullough, former acting public defender, and to join us tonight. Hi, Matunda. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Good evening to you. Good day. evening to all your viewers.
Yes. I don't know if it is your phone, your not your phone, your volume is down or what. I mean, that sort of
My volume
noise.
is up. Can you hear me?
Here you are now. Why you trying to hide your voice from the people?
No, I'm saying good evening to everyone,
Yeah.
your viewers, and I suspect people say viewers and subscribers.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. And for those who are on TikTok, to see the great face of Mr. McCullough, you'll have to go onto YouTube as well. Matundo, my opening. We can't mince words now. Jamaica is in a serious stage now. You know, one of the things that I hear a lot is that there's development, things are looking great, things are nice. But something which really drives home to me so much is this whole thing about integrity. Integrity, integrity, corruption, and all those sort of things. These things sometimes are pushed aside. That I even heard a guy came on some platform and said, if the prime minister, for argument's sake, had 28 bank account, and we are seeing all these development, things are looking great, he want him to have 50. Because if you have 50 bank account now, that means that things will be better. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I'm sure the prime minister doesn't even agree with him. So
Yeah, exactly. So you see, and when I say even so, it is not pointing any shots at the prime minister or so, but I think we've got to call a spade a spade. That's how we see things, you know. Yeah, what's your take in opening before we delve into things when it comes on to integrity and this governance things?
well, I mean, I think I prefer the word governance as
Yes.
opposed to integrity.
Mm,
Uh, I think we've made progress as a nation in terms of
yes.
where we started off,
Mm,
but you get the impression for sure. And when I say we have made progress, I'm really referring to the fact that we do have institutions that,
yes.
in the form of the Integrity Commission, the FID, we do have rules as it relates to procurement.
Yes.
And those a great deal of them came around in the 1990s. There was a whole scale
Yes.
creation of non statutory bodies. Let's call them statutory bodies that are geared towards bringing about a high level of accountability.
Yes.
I'm not suggesting, and in the context of a society which has a maximum population of about 3 million, it
Yes.
is not an easy thing to achieve because the truth of the matter is just about everyone in Jamaica. If you don't know the person, you might know someone who knows the person.
Yes.
So achieving accountability in that space, which requires a great degree of independence,
Mm,
is not an easy task when compared to if you were living in a country like such as England, where you have millions of persons.
yeah.
So I think we've made a lot of progress institutionally. Institutionally, what bedevils us, I think, more than anything else, is the straight political divisions that exist in our society.
Mm,
Because what that brings to the core is it crowds out at times objectivity, and it
mm,
prevents one half of the population from being able to hear what the other half is saying.
mm,
Because whenever someone offers a healthy dose of critique, it is invariably received as a political jibe.
yes.
Whenever someone appoints someone to a role, invariably, at times you hear the refrain, it's because he's a comrade, because he's
Exactly.
a laborite.
Yes.
In my view, that's our biggest obstacle to
Mm,
achieving the levels of accountability that we want and that we see as optimal. Um, the last time I checked, I think in terms of where we are on the corruption perception index, and that's that's something that really impacts on accountability.
yes.
We've made progress, we're making progress in terms of where we are on the corruption perception index. However, we are now at a critical stage where we can either take we can either retain our current standing,
Mm.
or we can really take a huge step backwards. Yeah, what do I mean by that? Well, let's not be coy about it. We, and that's not me casting aspersion at anyone, far be it from me to do so, but we do have a prime minister whose statutory declarations have not been signed off by the body that is charged with getting that done. And
Yes.
even if you are the person who changes the bulbs at Belmont Road, this, as a Jamaican, cannot make you feel at ease. It cannot
Mm.
make anyone feel at ease, and you don't need to be anti-wholeness to to know that you cannot feel at ease at it, because it has caused a great degree of public humiliation on the part of lawmakers who are were stumbling over themselves. I'm talking about some Jamaican Labour Party MPs who are stumbling over themselves to to getting the proverbial stab at the Integrity Commission.
Mm.
And that is why I'm saying that entire scenario where the prime minister is in the position where he is in, it is causing us not to look good. It's causing our lawmakers, some of them I know who are sensible persons, doesn't matter what side they're on. The-
Mm.
I speak specifically to the current um, member of parliament for Southeast Clarendon, Pernell Charles Jr. I mean, I
Yeah.
saw his display in parliament earlier this year, um, in terms of the questions, how he questioned the former chairman of the Integrity Commission,
Oh
uh,
yes.
Justice Panton, the tone of it, and it wasn't. It was too adversarial in my view. It's too adversarial. I'm sure Mr. Panton could have, and he did handle himself well, but it's just that we embarrass ourselves because of the situation on accountability, and that is
Mm.
why I'm saying we're at this crossroads where we have a prime minister whose declarations have not been certified. We have a prime minister over whom there's a great cloud over that aspect of his leadership.
Mm.
And the sooner we get that resolved, the better it is. What I find very concerning, and every Jamaican must be concerned about this, is that this degree of willingness on the part of some legislators to tear down the Integrity Commission merely because it happens to produce a report that it did not like. Because of course I wouldn't like that if I was a member of a political party and um, the leader of a party's accounts cannot be certified. It clearly does not sit well and cannot sit well. So they get into this sort of defensive mode.
Yes.
And so here we are now, where anyone who, during that period, who sided with the views expressed by, or the report, the conclusion contained in the report of the commission, anyone who agreed with those things was seen as someone who was a supporter of the People's National Party. And I
Yes.
just find that to be lazy thinking. It's quite lazy, because
Mm.
it means it saves you from getting in the hard work of really analyzing what is put before you and offer a sort of evidence-based critique, as opposed to an emotional, partisan, knee-jerk reaction, and a decision, a sort of decided um, position that I shall and will defend at all costs. So just not helpful to a democracy. It's not going to help us get to where we need to get to on the corruption perception index. where we are now in this moment, certainly in respect of the recent appointment by
Yeah.
the Public Services Commission
Yeah.
of Mr. Dennis Chung as the Chief Technical Director of the Financial Investigation Division. Now, what people must remember is that the FID really sits in a statutory body. It is, yes, but it's not. It's a body that sits within the Ministry of Finance, because
Yes.
it's the Minister of Finance who really, I suppose, would do the help to do the vetting and then put the candidates before the Public Services Commission.
Mm.
Now, I said earlier that we are at a critical moment, and there are number of reasons why I said that we're at a critical moment. First and foremost, I think this job was advertised in November of last year, and when the job was advertised, the job specification that came with the advert, or that went with the advert, was the typical job specs that has been utilized for certainly the last 20 odd years
Mm.
that this entity has existed. And what yes, I see you put it on screen. Minimum of 12 years of experience in law enforcement or equivalent, postgrad
Yeah.
degree in management, public administration, criminal justice law or equivalent qualification, and a minimum of 5 years at a senior level of law enforcement or equivalent. It is
Yes.
my understanding that certainly that part of the specs, minimum of 12 years experience in law enforcement or equivalent, certainly was removed.
That's what I got to understand. That's why it's highlighted in yellow as well. Yeah. Mm.
It was removed after when the advert came out in November. I think they did a round of interviews. No one was selected. Um, and then fast forward to now, we've been told that that requirement is somehow miraculously it's no longer a prerequisite, and it should alarm any well-thinking person in because there hasn't been an explanation as
Yeah.
to why all of a sudden, as the nature of the job changed, that would have required an amendment, I would say, to Section 5 of the statute, the governing statute, because nothing in the job spec has changed. So explain to the nation why it is that between November 2024 and now fast forward in June, almost
Yeah.
in June 2025, what has happened in that space of time? Why
Yeah.
has this job specs been altered? Was it done to accommodate
Mm.
Sean? And again, I don't know the person. I really don't know him beyond when I see him on the screen.
Well, someone on TikTok just wrote that they changed the requirement to facilitate this person being qualified. The person went a bit further by saying it is a criminal act. But let me play something here because a question was asked at the recent post cabinet meeting, and hear what the Minister of Information said when this gentleman asked his question. I'm going to play it here.
That some comments made by Mr. Dennis Strong in relation to the Prime Minister gives the impression that he is conflicted or he is biased. I wanted the government to respond to that particular assertion.
I have not seen those assertions, so I can't really comment on that. What I do know is that if you think about Dennis Chung, and I haven't really done any research or anything, but I remember seeing him go into National Solid Waste Management Agency, and he did a fantastic job, and he had no experience, I believe, in National Solid Waste, right? And he did a fantastic job when he became chair there. And so I've seen a gentleman who has excelled in everything that he has done. And I'm sure I have confidence in the team that does the interviews, that selects these individuals. We keep saying it is a process. No one just wakes up and a minister calls and says, here is a job for you. It cannot work like that. There is a process where persons apply for a position, interviews are done. There is a criteria that is set in terms of what you want and the competencies you want, and then a selection is made at that point. And so that is what has happened in this case. And as I've said, if you have other information contrary to that, please let us know. Right. Last question.
When you hear that question, and let me just actually just go back to something here, because she said she don't know what that assertion was, but I can read it. I can read it what it says right here, because I got the information right here.
I mean,
Why is Dennis?
anyone who believe that,
yeah,
is either someone who just dropped from Mars in Jamaica, or they don't know a lie when they hear it. It's all a lie.
Yes. Perceived bias and conflict of interest. Chung has publicly disagreed with the findings of the Integrity Commission regarding Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness's statutory declaration. The IC report, which raised concerns about the Prime Minister's finances, was referred to the FID, Financial Investigation Department, for further investigation. Chung's comment included his assertion that there was nothing unusual about the Prime Minister being connected to 28 bank accounts, have led to accusing that he's biased in favor of the government and the ruling Jamaica Labour Party. And the opposition stance is that the PNP has labeled Chung a government and JLP apologist, and argues that his appointment suggests a deliberate attempt to derail investigation into the Prime Minister's affair. The PNP contend that Chung's public statement demonstrates a clear conflict of interest, undermining the independence and credibility. Let's look at the whole bit about the conflict of interest and the assertions there. There's a lot of conflict of interest, but let's talk about that statement which he said there and then. Does that bar him, in a sense, at that time? Will he be now wearing a different hat, whereby he can see, as lawyers they say sometimes, a lawyer might say something, but you have the evidence before you, got the facts before you, and therefore you will have to rule in a different way. There's a level of objectivity. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. What do you say about that?
Well, before I respond, I'm in terms of what was said at the press conference. That basically the minister says, well, I haven't seen those assertions. I haven't seen the statements made by Mr. Chung. If they have not been brought to her attention,
yes,
given that she's coming to the press conference, knowing full well that this is a likely topic that would have been raised, someone in the cabinet, someone in the JLP's apparatus must have brought this to her attention. If you and I know of it, if other persons in the society know of it, you're telling me that they proposed Mr. Chung, and let's not beat around the bush about this.
Yes.
Before it's not a case Mr. Chung goes and hey, you know what? I'm just going to apply for this job. People know this thing works. He has been tapped for the job.
Yes.
Fine. These things happen. Okay. You're telling me that no one who did the background check on Mr. Chung couldn't have located an interview that he did with Nationwide? Come on, man. This is sort of sophistry that I find. I'm impatient with this type of sophistry from that minister. I could tolerate it from Mr. Morgan, and I got tired of it. Now she's coming with it. Come on, it's sophistry in its plainest fashion. But is there, when you asked the question about is he conflicted? And I've heard some say he has his freedom of speech. No one is firstly saying that Mr. Chung somehow should be muzzled and should not be able to offer his considered
His view.
opinion on these
Mm.
things. And you don't need to agree with him on what he is, the position that he's taking as it relates to the Integrity Commission's report. You don't need to agree with him. But
Yes.
what you cannot disagree with is this, that having expressed those views, i.e., the report is not effectively worth the paper it's written on, the conclusions that it has arrived at, he disagrees with them. Having arrived at that view, would it not be curious to say that an onlooker would not be of the view that there will be a real danger
Yeah.
that he will be biased? Not a probability, but a real danger of bias, i.e.,
Mm.
a possibility that he'll be biased. Of course. And as an investigator, he's required to be objective. But he has already gone through the report, he has told us. Yes?
Mm.
And he has formed the view on certain aspects of the report that the conclusions that it has arrived at were not supported by uh, evidence. That's what
Mm.
he has said. He has conducted that analysis.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily agreeing or disagreeing with him on that. He's entitled to do that. But what he's not entitled to do, and what someone from the PSC, the Public Services Commission, needs to explain to us is, were they unaware of these utterances by Mr. Chung?
Mm.
And if they were not unaware of them, explain to the Jamaican public how it is that appointing him doesn't create a real danger of bias in the conduct in the impending investigation that the
Yeah.
the FID has been asked to do. I mean, it's just it. There's something, everything about this from the position of the job specs has been changed
Yeah.
to, oh, we did a first round of interview and nobody was selected. What you do, you go back to the marketplace, widen the scope of your search.
Yes.
Okay, be deliberate, because even though the internet is available and anyone could have looked and say, oh, there's a job in Jamaica, you get a bit,
Yeah.
you can get a bit more deliberate in going overseas. Do you
Yeah.
understand me?
Yeah. You're right, because persons within the diaspora may be very much interested in
Of
it.
course, there are lots of Jamaicans overseas with that type of experience and expertise. There are lots of Jamaicans. So I don't buy this argument about, well, we're not able to get anyone, so we re-advertise, and now we've settled on him. I heard one commentator saying, well, we don't even know how many persons applied the second time around. uh, Everything about it, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate for Mr. Chung, because he's someone who I think a lot of people respect his opinions when he expressed them on the national airwaves. But this particular appointment, it doesn't sit well with me, because it tells me that there's a real danger of bias, because, if only because he has
Uttered.
expressed a view. Yes, it's not that he has said, well, I don't know about it. He's gone into the report, he's gone through it, and he has expressed a view that he doesn't think that this is of any value. And this is the same commission that has now asked the FID to investigate. How can he then go, if I'm an investigator within the FID,
Yes.
the person who's the chief technical director does not have confidence in the commission's report, that has asked us to do some things. How can an investigator then one, take this investigation serious. Two,
Yeah.
how do we know that chief technical director will provide the resources that are required for him to do what the report has asked him to do, a report that he disagrees with?
Yes.
Don't tell me that he's going to be professional. It is not that he has seen a photograph and he must put it out of his mind. No, he has read the report and he said that the report is not worth the paper it's written on. And if that is
Yes.
his position to which he's entitled, I don't think he should have been considered, or at least should never have been interviewed. Frankly
Yeah.
speaking, he ought not to
Yeah.
have been interviewed.
Let me just say hi to Beta, blessings, how are you, and to Abu and a couple of persons on lots of conversations which are going on TikTok. Someone said, why are people opposing the prime minister? I want you to pick on that point there. Why are people opposing the prime minister? And also Garnet Smith said, is Andrew Holness trying to be DJT, which is Donald Trump? The biggest problem with Jamaican politics is that Jamaicans are tribalistic. Honesty and integrity will always be elusive until Jamaican loses the blind loyalty. That's a point that someone said. Well, when someone says a question like, why are people going against the prime minister? It's not going against the prime minister, is it?
Well, no, I don't, I know that the prime minister doesn't think that anyone is going at him. The prime minister knows that he is the most senior public servant in our stratosphere,
Yeah.
and a statutory body has found things that it doesn't agree with, having conducted an investigation,
Yeah.
and the prime minister disagrees with that, and he has exercised his constitutional right to challenge the conclusions.
Yeah.
That's fine. I don't think the prime minister feels as if he's been picked on, because he knows that there's a statutory framework in place. He knows this. His acolytes, the likes of Colonel Charles Jr., might think that, but deep down, I know the prime minister is a reasonable person. He
Yes.
doesn't think that he's been attacked. He certainly doesn't think that he's been targeted. He knows that if it was someone else, the approach of the body would be the same. I would be frightened to think that the prime minister thinks he's a chief. You see, you got to separate the commission from, for example, the People's National Party. That's a
Yes.
party. It's a political party, so it's going to make political points. Which is, if the Jamaica Labour Party was in the position, they would have made those points in the same way. They would have.
Yes.
But I don't think the prime minister feels or thinks that he's been. He might not like the fact that he has to deal with these issues, which is a different thing.
Because the point what Garnet Smith said right there about the problem is the tribalistic nature. Honesty and integrity seem to be elusive. As the topic which I have, is integrity elusive in Jamaica? And when we, I've got to say this. I've got to say this because there are things which are permissible. There are things which are legal, but on the face of it, it doesn't look good, and it has a sort of conflict of interest, a double standard. I'm going to say it. I mean, the prime minister and his wife, the prime minister's wife, great lady, lovely lady, but being the speaker of the house, I think things like that shouldn't happen. It's legal, it's permissible, but at the same time, it doesn't look right. It doesn't. Listen, a lot of people say this, but they just don't push it really, and therefore, you need. One of the things that I believe Jamaica lack a level of sound leadership from another strata, another level that can come in sometime and can speak into these issues at times. Because this particular case here with Dennis Chung, I think, who was it? Who was the person? I believe there was someone, I don't know if it was the UK or the USA. The person stepped back because they recognized that they were going to be a massive distraction. I think it was in the States. One of these appointees, or someone that maybe Donald Trump has appointed, they pulled back. And I believe in a situation like this, maybe the onus and the responsibility is up to Mr. Trump to step back. So we're cracking up there. We're cracking up there, Matunda. I think we lost you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay, I can hear you now. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Mr. Trump. I hear.
Yes.
I heard or read where the Minister of Finance is saying that the call by the People's National Party for the effective the Prime Minister to rescind the appointment is an alarming and shocking request. You know, when you forget your political history or administrative history, you tend to make those outlandish and baseless comments, because that's the only thing I can attribute Miss the Finance Minister. Because if you could recall, in 2007, when the Public Services Commission appointed Dr. Stephen Vassiani as the Solicitor General, Mr. Bruce Golding, then Prime Minister, refused to appoint Stephen Vassiani because of differences of opinion with Dr. Vassiani, with whom he was once in the National Democratic Movement. So there's nothing new about the Prime Minister finding creative ways not to adhere to what the Public Services Commission decides. But, you know, as that person said earlier, the problem is the tribal nature of our politics. It sometimes robs some of us of our capacity to remember, especially those things that sort of cause what we are about, what we say, to look. It evidentially challenges what we say. So there's nothing new that the Prime Minister has been asked to do that has never been done before. The Prime Minister can find creative ways to say to Mr. Chung, you know, I don't think you should take up this post. And if that is the case, there's the PSC cannot compel the Prime Minister to appoint someone, because that's not what. There were persons who wanted Dr. Vassiani to be Solicitor General, and ultimately, I think a temporary injunction was obtained. But ultimately, if my memory serves me correctly, what happened in the end, there was a compromise. But I think the matter went to the Court of Appeal, and in essence, the Prime Minister got his way, because Dr. Vassiani did not get promoted from the Deputy Solicitor General to Solicitor General. Okay? So I think Ms. Favor Williams need to go and check our country's administrative history, because her comment is alarming, shocking, and distressing, because it betrays at that senior level a sort of unwillingness to recall what has transpired. And she wasn't a child then; she was an adult, because I was, and she's much older than I am.
There's a school of thought. Because I had a guest on my show on Thursday night, and we just brought up the topic at the last, and then he asked this question: did the leader of the opposition put forth a name? And we're going through the whole cycle. How it happened with Mr. Chung is that the government made the recommendation, whether it's a prime minister or whatever like that, cabinet approves it, and then it goes to the service commission for them to ratify it. If I'm not mistaken.
I mean, that you're interviewed.
Yeah.
There's an advert that goes out. People apply, and someone within the ministry shortlist and send those shortlisted persons to be interviewed by the PSC, the Public Services Commission. That's what really happens.
Yeah.
But remember, in this case, the first round of interviews that took place, no one was deemed suitable.
Suitable, yes.
Yeah, no one was deemed suitable. But let's not beat around the bush. Invariably, persons who go before the PSC,
Yes.
one of them has been tapped by the government. Okay,
Yeah.
and I'm not seeking to call into question. I cannot do that, and I will not do it. The the professional competence or objectivity of the persons who sit on the PSC, but no one can tell me that the members of the PSC were unaware of the fact that the government wanted Dennis Chung in the
Yes.
position. So let's just be honest about how these things work. Of course, they would know that. Of course, they would know that. Doesn't mean that they
You know,
have to
yeah,
act,
yeah.
appoint the person.
Mm. Uh, shouldn't a position like the FID, crucial position like that, position like the head of the IC Commission, for argument's sake, shouldn't these positions be one which is uh, agreed with the leader of the opposition, and there's an agreement, or is it that the Public Service Commission is a vetting process that really should set the stage? Because
Well,
we yeah,
I mean, firstly, in response to the person who said, "Well, shouldn't the opposition have put forward a name?" No, the
yeah,
opposition doesn't need to do it. This is a job that people apply for. Okay.
yeah. Okay, okay,
The opposition is not obliged to do that. The opposition is saying if you're going to appoint someone, make sure the person is qualified to do the job. Make sure the person, it cannot be said that there's a risk of bias from the person.
yes. Mm.
Um, your question was, should there be a consensus? Of course, it would be good to get a consensus, but I'm not necessarily one who believes that a consensus is always necessary. I see why
Mm.
it is important in a small democracy like ours, but it's
Mm.
not always possible. It's not always possible because that will require, well, it is possible, but it's not easy,
Yes.
especially in an election year. Especially in an election year, it's not really easy. What I would want to see, to be honest, is I'm not a fan of the Public Services Commission as constituted in our constitution. I think they ultimately these people must be placed before a body
Mm.
that scrutinize them and ask them questions in the public domain. For example, there are persons in the public sphere who would want to know what's Mr. Chang's as a
Experience.
chartered accountant.
Yeah.
What's his experience of forensic accounting, which is quite different, you know,
Mm.
given the role that he'll be performing. And
Yes.
that those are the sort of questions that you don't necessarily get at the PSC, but you're more likely to get those sort of questions being asked directly by a committee of,
Yeah.
say, parliamentarians or a select committee of parliamentarians. People would want to ask Mr. Chung, since apparently Miss Dixon never heard those utterances. So I'm sure someone from the parliamentary group would have been in a position to have played the tape to him and asked the same question. Having expressed those views, how confident can anyone be that there's no real danger of bias when you go to commence this investigation that puts you on a direct collision path with your own investigators? You see, because I've never believed in the PSC as a system of
Mm.
appointing persons to such key positions in
Yeah.
our state. There's certain positions that I think that the vetting needs to be better, and the scrutiny needs to be more detailed.
Yeah. Well, we've come up to the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, thank for those who are joining me on TikTok. Lots of comments and happening over there, and for people who are joining me over there, and those who are on Instagram as well. Thank you, Ramsey, Savannah Coot, Bata. Hey, how are you over there? I think you're in Ghana, isn't it? That's awesome. And for George Smith and was just joined, and Shirley Bogle as well. The, one of the key things when we talk about integrity, integrity. I did a video, and I remember during the last council elections in Jamaica. This is what I said. I said this: people need to challenge their prospective councillors and ask them if they have signed up to the 7 code of conduct: selflessness, honesty, leadership, objectivity, transparency, accountability, and the list goes on. And if they are being investigated or being investigated for illicit enrichment, ask them these questions. And I've sort of put this as well, Matunda, to the people of Jamaica to challenge their prospective parliamentary candidate, because we know whenever an election is called, everyone sees to become a member of parliament after a point, and the prime minister and the cabinet will be running the country with the technocrats, and then people will need to challenge, because really and truly, personally speaking, and ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you say. Would you, if an MP or someone who is standing for office, a prospective parliamentary candidate, is standing for office, and they are being investigated for illicit enrichment, which is corruption, it's alleged, they're being investigated, should they be on the ballot? And that is, of course, including the prime minister, because he's been investigated. Let's just talk, and let's have an open and frank conversation here. And also, should persons sign up to the 7 code of conduct? Matunda, I was standing one time with the diaspora thing in the UK here for representative, and when I was standing as election, I had to sign up to the 7 Nolan principles. So therefore, I believe if we're really serious, and if Jamaicans are really serious, Jamaicans really need to challenge their MPs, prospective parliamentary candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's going to come about now. It's going to require some legislative changes for those to happen. What I would want to say is that clearly Mr. Chong has served Jamaica, because he has most recently been with the Jamaica Football Federation, and he has worked in a private capacity in Jamaica.
It's been on my show a couple of times. Dennis has been on my show a couple of times. I know it. That's why I would say we're having a conversation. This is
so clearly this is not. I don't want anyone to think that anyone is personally. Forget about the personalities or the individual. So it's not about Mr. Chung, frankly speaking. It's about the principle of bias. Can someone who has expressed a view that is literally opposite to the view expressed in the report, can that person really say to him or herself, there's no real danger of bias?
Yes.
How can that person be trusted effectively to conduct an investigation that will obtain the confidence of the people of Jamaica? Because as we said at the start of this program,
yes,
for us not to take 10 or 12 steps backward, we have to ensure that, irrespective of our political divisions, that our institutions maintain that level of objectivity, because it's that separates us from a failing state. Because once your institutions stop working, you know where you're gone. Colombia, Haiti, and those places are just bus stop to where we'd be going, frankly speaking. So let us not attack Mr. Chung. Let us understand that we're discussing a principle. We're not
Yes.
discussing politics as in partisan politics. We're discussing a principle, and that's a sad thing about it, that the leading voices on this happens to be those coming out of the People's National Party. The leading voices on this ought to have been the presidents of the different associations in Jamaica. I heard one, I think it's in Mississippi, he came out and said, well, this man is qualified for the job and so forth. Not a word from him about the issue of bias. And that's my concern. I'm not going to go into the whether or not he's qualified or not qualified. I leave that to persons who are more knowledgeable on these things than I am. What I do say there's a real danger of bias, and that's what certainly does not sit well with. There's a real danger of bias. How can you have an investigator? Just let us be plain on it. A detective hears about a murder in his own community. He pulls up Johnny and says, "Are you do it? No, sir, you do it."
Yes.
So happens tomorrow morning, the divisional lead on crime says, "I want you to lead that investigation."
Yes.
No one in their right mind would have said, "Well, he can lead an objective investigation." It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Let's look at what Faith Family says. If they don't have a job, this is about the prospective parliamentary candidates and about the whole ethics issue. If they do not have, if they don't even have a job requirement, do you really think that the code of ethics matter? They need to be standardized of the quality of character of MP. I think that links to the point whereby when they got the recent increase of 200 to 300% increase, there was a promise that there's going to be a job description or so. That is something which has not happened yet. George Smith said, putting Chung in that position after removing the most critical criteria is tantamount to asking the plane mechanic who changes a tire to put on an epaulette and assume the role of the pilot. Use an analogy there. And Faith Family, they claim that the process was rigorous and that Chung has the ability, based on how he demonstrated in other roles, that he doesn't need a qualification to be able to effectively enact change. So they're using the previous way how he has been operated, but I also saw that some years ago there was an issue with JUT, and he had to step back, I think.
Who?
Yeah.
Who?
Mr. Chung.
Not known to me.
Yeah. Somebody sent me these things. It's where is it? But anyway, I think that is one of the key things though. But Matundo, I still have to go back to this point here though, and this is a point that I grab. When Mr. Chung made those utterances, he maybe was privy to the report of what he is privy to, but maybe not. Huh?
What do you mean?
Okay, he was privy to maybe the report of the IC Commission, and he made that statement about the 28 that he doesn't see any big deal with it. But
well, I mean, I personally,
no, you know what I'm saying. I'm being facetious here, and I'm just looking at it in a different way. If he is in that position, separate and apart from the fact that that bit regarding the key component of it, the investigative aspect, is taken out. But if he goes in there with his team and he sees and he says, "Hang on a second, I must be able to speak up on these issues." I think the issue is this: do we think that if he sees things, would he speak up on it? Would he be an objective?
Well, that's the question I asked at the start. Because is there real danger? Is there a danger of bias? Of course, there's a danger of bias. It's already that this is not a report of any substance.
Yes.
Now, yes, he's gonna go and do and conduct his own investigation.
Yes.
That's where the doubt lies.
Mm.
Having expressed that view that says this is not a good report,
Yeah.
how can anyone trust him that if he now is presented with information during the investigation, that somehow he's going to withdraw his previously held views and focus on the evidence? I'm sorry, but this is again not about Mr. Chung. This is about the real question that has to be asked. Is there real danger that, and by danger, real, I mean a possibility, not a probability, a possibility that he might ignore evidence that's put before him that probably contradicts his own views? That's what you're asking him to do. And I don't think he should be placed in that position. And that is, if you ask me, that is the nub of it all. Why place this man in that position where he's now presented with information that conflicts with his not just his opinion, but a previously held conclusion that he said he arrived at, having gone through the report?
Yeah, because he did say he went through the report. He did say that.
Yeah, you are placing him in an invidious position, and I think it's all those who are here saying, "Oh, he should stay on," and so forth. Yeah.
I think it is similar. I know this is a massive comparison, but when Joe Biden was there, and people all know that he wasn't able to function properly and effectively, and there was someone running the ship at the same time, it wasn't effective. He wasn't doing the job.
Oh.
And I believe that Dennis Chung, based on the qualifications and based on that key component which has been taken out, he will somewhat be, what should I say, not retarded in the sense of being a retard, but somehow he would be, he would lack the experience, lack the qualification, and we were setting it. Actually, I believe the government, the PC Commission, and all these guys will be setting him up to fail. And setting him up, yeah.
Well, I mean, on this very thing, the most important investigation that the Fed would have ever done in its history, he's going to go there without the confidence of the nation, the confidence of the nation.
Yes.
With a perception that the job was doctored to accommodate him.
Yes.
And it will take away from any work that he's done. And this is what someone, based on my understanding, had a stellar professional career. And I think well, it's his decision, but I think it's a decision that he perhaps should take to recuse himself.
Yes, yes.
There's too much hanging over it.
Yeah. Abu, in order to come on the platform, you'll have to go on to the YouTube channel, and I'll put the link there. There's a link there where you can come in if you want to say something, but not on the TikTok, because the TikTok won't come through.
About to go.
Huh?
He's gonna miss me because I'm about to go.
Yeah. What someone said, they shouldn't be if they are being investigated. Jamaican politics need a major overhaul, and we need better entity that educate people, because part of the problem is a lack of public education. George Smith said, if you walk into a courtroom to provide jurors service, the first question they're going to ask you is if you have read about the case, and if you have said yes, that is reasonable cause to expel you. That's a classic one, isn't it?
Of course.
Because based on the fact that he has said what he said, that is a classic example there, which has been put by
It's a real
authority.
danger of bias. I mean, that's a testimony. A real danger of bias.
Mm,
Is there a real danger of bias? Of course, and it's to be found the fact that he has arrived at a particular conclusion, and now you're going to ask him to conduct an investigation to find out if what the commission not to find if what the commission said was correct, but whether or not the referral to the FID was in the first instance justified. But I
yes.
don't think he agreed. I don't think he
Mm,
agreed with that referral.
yes.
It's a difficult. It's not a difficult one. It's a very obvious thing that Mr. Chung, they shouldn't have placed the man in that
Yeah.
position.
Yeah. I think they've done him dirty. They have put
Yeah.
injustice on the gen. I think that's the conclusion we will draw, that they've done him a bad deal. And of course, many persons have drawn their conclusion as to why the person is there. But let's deal with the principal issue. Let's deal with the facts. We're not dealing with anybody personally. This is not about anyone personally as well. Matundo, before you go, how do you see? What's your recommendation then, um, when it comes on to the whole aspect of the integrity commission? Sometimes I think, I tell you this, and I'm going to say this out. I sometimes think the integrity commission need to have a robust person, not really a judge. I think sometimes judges tend to want to appease and blah blah blah. Yeah, I think it needs someone, a very robust, a Rottweiler. You know, yeah,
No,
Jamaica needs some serious. I don't know.
no, you just need someone competent, and I think I have no
Yeah.
reason to believe that there isn't such a person now. So
Yes. Yes.
I'm not too bothered, but I just need politicians to respect the institutions, because
Yes.
a lot of them won't respect institutions
Mm,
that provide them with a decision or decisions that make them look good, or at least one that doesn't make them look bad. That's the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems, and some of our politicians or legislators need to understand that in as much as they want to
yeah.
tear down other institutions that are there
Mm,
to serve us in our democratic experiment, they and the institution that they represent will be the next one to be torn down if they keep tearing down other
mm,
institutions, because there must be people out there who do not necessarily agree with the rate at which they work or the quality of the work that they do. And rather than throwing a firebomb inside the parliament, people go to the polls and deselect
yes.
deselect them. But if they keep tearing down other institutions of our democratic experiment, it's not long after that their institution will be the next one.
And
So
and
they need to take heed.
yeah. And that's a very key point, because I remember there's an MP always keeps saying, which is correct, that these institutions are creatures of Parliament, created by Parliament, and therefore there's a need for it to work. But before you go, as I said, in the last word, I think you've said it in Elsie, but in your last recommendation in this
Well,
particular,
my simple on the immediate thing before us is that governance is important, and
yes,
it's the quality of the governance that we have had since 1962 that,
mm,
in part, has helped us to get to where we are. By which I mean we could have been much further. We could have achieved more, I should say.
yeah,
And a lot of it has to do with our poor governance structure. And I would also say we need to forget about the partisan politics when we're discussing important principles.
yes,
A People's National Party supporter can have a view that that concurs with the dweller of or at the a dweller of the Belmont Road,
yes,
because I've always thought that most politicians get into politics to change the country. They're convinced that they can do it. So
yes,
if most of them are in politics to change them, and we need to assume that because someone says something that is not in keeping with how you see the process playing out, doesn't mean that the person hates Jamaica any less than you do.
Yes, yes. No, that's sound words, and I strongly believe, and sometimes I normally would say that we try to reach out to the person who are normally not the die-hearted, but at the same time we need to really reach to the die-hearted for them to actually understand, to really be swayed, to look at things a bit very objectively at this time for the best interest. Because I believe everybody want the best thing as well, you know. But Matunda, I want to thank you so much for joining tonight, and
Thanks for
much
having me. It's a
your
pleasure.
view. You know, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matunda McCullough is a former acting public defender in Jamaica, barrister who is here in the UK, now in the King's Court, King's King's country.
Uh,
You know, I'm looking forward to the day when, after this election, that they can really deal with this whole constitutional reform and just really get this thing. By the way, there's a the CCJ. I think someone stepped down. I think the head of it recently. I think
do I? Yeah. Well, they have a new president, a Jamaican.
the
A
new
new president.
yeah, the new president there, yeah. So and that's 30, and this is 30 years. That's been doing that. So we need to get the CCJ up and running. Matundo, all the best. I'm gonna go try and reach press releases from a couple of these other advocates network groups.
Okay, no problem. Take it easy. It's a
Take
pleasure.
care, man. Thank
Bye.
you, Matundo. Cheers. Uh, Abu. Okay. Those are not nice discussions which are on TikTok there. Let's behave ourselves over there. um, I want to read a couple press releases from the JAMP, Jamaica Management Portal, and also from National Integrity Action. I believe it's important, and also from Miss Rosemary Binder as well. I think these are so very important. What George Smith said, if we have a strong institution set on key principles, it will help to preserve our democracy. And the worst thing politicians can do is to compromise the ability for institutions to do their work. As I said earlier to Abu, if you want to come on the program, you can actually come in and give your views, but the TikTok bit won't work. It won't connect properly as well. But I put the link in the chat section here, and persons, if they want, they can click on the link and they can come in. Now, this is Miss Rosemary Binder. Miss Rosemary Binder, she's based in Germany, and she sent me something to say. This is her statement in regards to the whole aspect of integrity. On the matter of integrity, it is simple, should be simple. When a people feels their leaders have no integrity, they lose trust in them. This leads to frustration and voter apathy. When voters no longer trust their leaders and no longer exercise their right to vote, democracy suffers and tyranny triumphs. We must never get tired of demanding integrity from our leaders, especially those we hired to represent the interests of Jamaica and its people, every single one of them. I like how she used the word hired, because I always say this and I always emphasize this and I always sort of regurgitate it, that government officials, parliamentarians, they're actually on loan, in a sense, mean to say that the people have actually voted for them for a period of time and they can vote them out. They are chief servants. They're servants. And the people are the masters. But people need to somewhat recognize and understand that they're actually the boss. And the politicians, whatever, driving the car, blow, and just make it seem like they're less off. No, the people are the boss. Very strongly about that. And I don't know what persons think about that as well. That's Miss Rosemary Binder. And I was looking at the press release from Where's the press release? The press release is from National Integrity Action. What somebody say? Yeah. Master Mark has no integrity. Thief poor people, money in FinSat, the greatest transfer of wealth. That's why I can't deal with these sort of discussions. You know, this is not about Mark Golden at this present moment. You know, this is about a situation. This is not a PNP and JLP discussion. But of course, I'm not going to entertain that. But I just highlighted it that I don't tend to entertain those sort of discussions when start to juxtapose. We're trying to find some common understanding and some common ground, which is so important. And really and truly, Jamaicans and persons who are so caught up with the orange and the green need to mature up yourself, need to grow up, really grow up in the interest of the country, and have respect for persons. As one thing somebody said to me the other day, that even though I might speak up on issues of integrity and governance, and I'll call out the Prime Minister, one thing I'll always say, it's the Prime Minister, and I always say, Mr. Golden, big them up as well as they are, protect the office, which is so crucial, because we do not want to see this massive level of disrespect, and then one day we find ourselves down a particular route, becoming like Haiti, because we all disrespect offices, disrespect each other, cussing off each other, go suck it this and blah, blah, blah. It is so childish, so immature, and should stop. But anyhow, the perception of bias, this is by National Integrity Action. And even this organization, every time they put something out or so, people say, oh, they are other group, or they are PNP or whatever. JAMP, oh, they are PNP. And this is what she said. The NIA acknowledged the appointment of Mr. Dennis Chung as the head of Financial Investigation Division. We share the public's concern regarding the transparency of this appointment, mainly as the division is tasked with investigating the Integrity Commission report on the Prime Minister. The selection process is for such a critical entity at this time, is pivotal in building and maintaining the confidence of both local and law enforcement. Transparency in leadership is essential for maintaining trust, upholding integrity, and ensuring the credibility of financial investigations. Mr. Chung's dedication to service and Jamaica is unquestionable. However, his previous statements on the Integrity Commission report raises legitimate questions regarding his objectivity. As a former chairman of National Integrity Action, we are confident that he appreciates the validity of these concerns. And it goes further by saying, public confidence in the integrity of this investigation hinges on transparency and impartiality. The implications of this appointment are far-reaching. Perceived bias or lack of transparency in the selection process may significantly undermine public trust in the FID and its ability to conduct impartial inquiries. Concerns about Mr. Chung's objectivity raise legitimate doubts regarding the integrity of the investigation into the Prime Minister's report from the IC, which in turn influences both the public and key stakeholders' perceived findings. Given Jamaica's financial commitments, transparency and accountability in financial investigation are paramount. Any perceived bias might diminish cooperation with international agencies and erode foreign confidence in the country's anti-corruption efforts. Should these concerns escalate and be disregarded, the Prime Minister authoritarian tendencies may become even more entrenched, setting a troubling precedent for governance and accountability. I don't see what this person is saying or what this press release is saying has anything to do with PNP or JLP. Whether they are PNP or JLP, but what the words are saying is saying, given the profound implications of this appointment, National Integrity Action strongly urges the government to provide full transparency on the selection process and criteria used in appointing the head of the FID, which is the Financial Investigation Division. Clarifying these details is crucial for maintaining public trust, ensuring accountability, and protecting the integrity of financial investigation, both locally and internationally. There's still time to do the right thing, and that by Ms. Daniel Archer, Principal Director. What's your views on that? What are people's views on that? Yeah. I am the biz. Amen. They can be voted out. I am the biz. Same here. Okay. And there's one which is from JAMP, the new head of finance. This is from JAMP. These social civil societies are selected and all have their heads. Okay, whatever. For immediate release, the FID is a critical component of Jamaica's accountability framework. It is vital that the division does not remain without an appointed head for an extended time. Head of the division must have full confidence of the society, having the requisite qualification, demonstrating independence and impartiality. Someone just say, IC's Integrity Commission is playing politics with JLP government. Okay. I can't say certain things that people are saying on TikTok. Against this background, the Jamaica Accountability Meter portal is calling for clarification of the recent appointments of Mr. Dennis Chung to the post of Chief Technical Director, CTD of the FID. Financial Investigation Divisions. With the newly appointed CTD, job requires more accounting. Yep. Anyway, well, just wanted to just set that out there for the time being. But anyhow, the point has been set, and I've said what I've said in regards to the way forward in regards to this. The Chung appointment is controversial, primarily because of his public statements. But things can be right. As I said, what if the person look at the papers, look at the evidence, and say, well, but the key component is the investigative era or section. Right? So JAM playing politics, NIA playing politics, everybody playing politics. I wish everybody would just stop playing. Mark Nation and Sean Beeson, can we all just stop playing and just get really serious in the interest of the nation of Jamaica? That is something which is so very much important. Stop playing and just have serious focus on Jamaica. And of course, I'm not going to touch on the other issue because there's this bit about this drill, which is supposed to be for the hospital, which is cost a certain amount, but has been sold for a certain amount. I think things are happening and it's going through the courts, or should be going through the courts or so. But that also is a smack in the whole aspect of integrity, and therefore, as with the Prime Minister and with anyone who have their statutory declaration being sorted out, let's hope that will be sorted out. Because we all want the best thing for the nation, want the best thing for the Prime Minister, and the best thing for Jamaica. So yes, so let that happen. And without further ado, I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your views. And remember, there's been a very few discussions. I got 4 discussions so far, which I've had in regards to civics, the responsibility of persons in engaging and working. We had one with Joanne Simpson, the author of Civics, and then we had also with Mr. Matunda McCullough. I think it was Civics and the Constitution. Let me see. Yes, there was first Miss Joanne Simpson, Masterclass on Civics, and she wrote the book, which is called New Vision Civics. I believe it is very important. Then I had Mr. Matinda McCullough, who came on earlier, Masterclass in Civics and Citizenship. And then I also had Miss Professor Rosalie Hamilton, Civics and the Constitution. And then I also had Miss Janet Calder, and Janet Calder was Civics and Accountability. There we are. Where she is? Civics and Accountability. So there are 4 which is out there, which are very good lecture series where one can listen to and can dissect it. And please share it as well so persons can be educated in the whole aspect of civics, because they said civics not in school and blah, blah, blah. But we're all working together for the best thing. Right, Mark? All the civics group are PNP surrogate trying to bring down Andrew Holness. You know, I wish we'd stop saying that about bringing down Andrew Holness. This is bigger than Andrew Holness. The office of the Prime Minister is so crucial, you know, as well. Martin, shut up. Oh, I can't deal with these persons on TikTok. Some of these comments which are very derogatory and not nice. Well, anyway, guys, I want to say have a good night, and God bless you, and peace out, and all the best. Have a great day. Remember to like and share, and peace out. Thanks. Bye-bye. I don't really